Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zack Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait.
Hey, YouTube viewers, check out the great sponsors of the Can't Wait podcast. We have them down in the description. Take advantage of the great deal, including Liquid Death. Drinking my first can, Marissa. First can.
I still haven't gotten my first one yet.
Yeah, we'll get
It's
those.
awesome.
They're on the way. They're on the way. All right, on to the regular show. Zach is back. Finally, we get to really start this Jets season. They're 1-2, but this feels like a new beginning, although the Jets coaching staff still managed to shoot themselves in the foot this week at the podium, which seems to be becoming a tradition for this coaching staff. We're going to talk about Zach Wilson's return. We're going to talk about Jeff Ulbrich and what he had to say today as we record this on Thursday. And of course, we have our predictions coming up as well, and we'll get you ready for the Steelers game. This is the Can't Wait podcast. Tim McMaster, along with Zack Rosenblatt and Marissa Dunn. Zach, I guess, first of all, we got away from our hat segment, but you have the same company today. So with Patagonia, right? You have two Patagonia hats? That's a different hat.
I have more than two. I'm a big supporter of Patagonia. Literally after the podcast where we talked about like discussing my hats every time, I went on the Patagonia site and I saw like 10 different hats that I wanted. I had to click out. Otherwise I was going to spend like $200. So yeah, I'm a big fan of their hats. So that's what we got.
Well, beyond Liquid Death,
maybe we can back in my parents' basement, like a classic sports writer, by the way. So
love
yes, you are. Not only that, but you don't even have a microphone.
Oh
which
yeah,
was,
I'm an absolute disaster today.
I mean, we should say, because people are, I will say this about listeners of podcasts in general. Like, it's funny because like most people I feel like listen and it's fine. And sometimes the quality is not great. Then there is a percentage of people who are like, you know, I could hear some peas popping in that podcast or like this or that. And they're really critical of the audio level. So we admit that Zach's audio level is not at the typical level today because he forgot his microphone. So he's going via the computer, right? So this is it's a Mac test.
Computer. I'm going to have to try and project my voice, which I'm not good at. I've been accused of trailing off sometimes. So I'm going to have to try not to do that.
I think you sound good. You sound good.
Oh, thanks.
All right, let's get into this. And we might as well start with Zach Wilson. We usually do, but now we can actually talk about him playing football. He is back. He is not, as people were saying on Twitter, he's not 110%, but he's 100%, which is good enough. But a lot to get to here with Zach. You have a story out. I think you eight points going into this game, basically, about Zach Wilson and kind of expectations and where we're at with him and all of that sort of things. I pulled a little bit from that. One thing that I thought was interesting that you pointed out is how long it's been since Zach Wilson has actually been hit in a football game, right? I mean, the injury was a non-contact variety and he didn't get hit like all summer. And so that's one thing to look out for, I guess, on Sunday is like, how does Zach Wilson handle getting hit for the first time in a long time?
Yeah, that's always the thing for guys coming off injuries and stuff, is like the first time they're going back to get hit. And his is a little stranger because, you know, he missed the beginning of the season and most of training camp. And all the preseason. So, you know, you add that all up and he really hasn't, number one, he hasn't gotten hit, but even more important for him, he hasn't gotten reps with all these guys. You know, so he hasn't worked on his timing with Garrett Wilson, who's a very unique receiver. Tyler Conklin, they looked good together in camp, but that's in camp. You know, these Breece Hall, his offensive line is in its like fifth iteration already since he got hurt, it feels like. So there's a lot of like, you know, the growing pains he'd be going through in camp, joint practices in the preseason, he's going to be doing live during the season when this team needs wins. You know, they can't afford to get killed anymore. I mean, nobody can afford to get killed, but just in terms of like how the fan base is going to react and what it might mean for, you know, the higher ups in this team and all that stuff. Like they need to speed up the process. And, you know, all they can do is just hope that Zach Wilson is more ready than maybe anybody's expecting him to be. It's all like, I think we talked about this earlier in the week. Everything's hypothetical with him right now. It's going to be hypothetical until we see him on Sunday, see how he looks. That first drive against the Eagles looked pretty bad, but it was the first drive. So maybe he looks bad again the first drive against the Steelers, and then you hope that he survives past the second one this time. But you know, there's a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, but you know, I also think, you know, they invested in him as like the future of the franchise. So they believe that he could do the things that they need him to do. Like their season is really on his shoulders, fair or not. And so a lot of what we're going to find out on Sunday is going to, dictate how I feel about how this team might be this year, even if maybe it's not fair to expect a lot of him on Sunday, but the reality is they can't lose to the Steelers. That's a winnable game on a schedule where there's not that many of them.
Yeah. And we've said it before, like not only, the season on the line, but really Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh's jobs here in New York, probably on the line, depending on how Zach Wilson plays and how long it takes him to become what they hope he can become, because like you said, they took him with the number 2 pick. One thing I thought was interesting this week, I figured he'd come out and have some kind of brace on the knee. And like, that's kind of the thing, right? You come back and even if it's just a mental thing for a little extra confidence, just to have something there. I know he had it on when he was first coming back, but this week, nothing on the knee, no brace, not even, a sleeve of any kind. And he said he won't have that.
He had a sleeve today. He had a sleeve today, actually.
Okay.
But I mean, by the sounds of that, just like a comfort thing. I don't know if he'll necessarily play with that or anything like that.
Yeah, I felt like there was like 2 ways to look at that. On one hand, like you almost want to see the sleeve because you're like, okay, like there's some sort of extra support. But then on the other hand, it probably means that he really is confident in how that knee is feeling. And maybe that means there's not going to be any second guessing, right? When he's out on the field, he's not going to be thinking about the knee because he feels that good about it.
I think that's a big part of it. Like you mentioned, like you joked about, and it seemed like it became like a whole thing. They weren't going to bring him back until he was 110%. He didn't get quite to 110, but at 100, as far as I can tell in practice, seems to be moving okay. Everybody's saying all the right things, that he looks good out there. He seems confident that it's not going to impact, his confidence scrambling or running out of the pocket and throwing on the run and all that stuff. And so if he's a full go, then, the brace being there maybe would just be a reminder of him every time he went up to snap the ball that, it was there. And so if his knee feels good and it feels good in movement and all that stuff, then I think it makes sense that he's not wearing that. But yeah, like we just talked about, but we'll see how it feels once he gets tackled, because he's going to get hit on Sunday. I know the Steelers don't have TJ Watt. They're not as scary, but this offensive line is also not scaring them either. So, he's going to go to the ground at some point. He's probably going to run the ball at some point. He's going to get hit. And so you wonder how his knee feels during the game, after the game, the morning after, all that stuff.
You just gave me like 3 transitions. That was a great answer, but I have to pick one. I'm going to go with this. You mentioned the offensive line and the shape that it's in right now. George Fant officially on the IR. It means Connor McDermott is going to be in there at left tackle. At least this week, we'll see about the reinforcements and when they can get up to snuff. But I mean, you look at the numbers, it's clear. You look at the eye test, it's clear. You look at where he was on the depth chart, it's clear. Like, Connor McDermott is not the guy you want protecting your franchise quarterback on the left side.
Yeah, that's for sure. There has been like a lot of criticism levied at like Joe Douglas for the fact that they're in this position, but and I get it to a degree. Like, they didn't plan to play Max Mitchell this year, and so if you didn't plan to play Max Mitchell, why'd you go into camp with only Mekhi Becton and George Fant essentially as offensive tackles that you could trust? But I also don't know that Dwayne Brown necessarily was even looking to sign with anybody in the middle of the summer. Like, he's a veteran guy that maybe was fine with skipping OTAs and all that stuff. And then they were, if you remember, they were going to try and sign him when Mekhi wasn't hurt. They wanted to bring him in as like the third guy. So then Mekhi gets hurt. You throw Dwayne Brown in there. You're like, all right, so we have Dwayne Brown and we have George Fant now, and then Max Mitchell if in case of emergency, and Connor McDermott's the 4th offensive tackle. And so they go into the season with that, and then, all these injuries keep happening now. Max Mitchell looks better than expected, so weirdly, like, nobody's even concerned anymore about the right side.
It's amazing.
And so now they go and sign a couple of veterans, Mike Remmers, who was on the Giants and the Chiefs previously, and Cedric Agbuhi. I don't know how to say that, and I'm
glad you did that.
Wrong. Like, these are 2 guys with a bunch of NFL starts. Remmers was coming off an injury, so there's a lot of people like, why didn't they sign these guys much earlier? Because you don't carry like 7 offensive tackles on the roster, and you don't expect to lose 3 of them before before we're not even a quarter through the season, and they've lost 3 offensive tackles already. So, to circle back, it's it's a concern that Connor McDermott is a left tackle. He's not, there's a reason why he's a backup. He started a bunch of games for him last year. He gave up like 2 sacks in his last start in that last game. He looked pretty bad last week when he came in, but he also missed a lot of camp with an ankle injury, so he didn't really have a preseason. So I don't know. I mean, you think it wouldn't be as bad as it looked at the end of last week, and you hope that the other 4/5 of the offensive line holds up, so then you throw some help out to him. I imagine that's going to be what they do. CJ Uzomah is probably going to basically be an extra offensive lineman. Maybe they give Jeremy Ruckert some reps. Maybe the running backs are helping out a little more. But that's kind of like they have to play with the hand they're dealt. And so you do McDermott, and you hope you can get those other guys ready enough and healthy enough that if McDermott's bad, then you can rely on them. I can't imagine they would play on Sunday. I think it'd more likely be Grant Herman's from the practice squad. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild to have us talking about this in week 4. Like, it's so early for a team to lose this many at one position. Like I've covered teams that have lost players at one position like over and over and over again, but it's over the course of the year. It's not like back to back to back like this. So the George Fant thing's concerning. Dwayne Brown is eligible to come back. He's not yet. So I think they're hopefully does at some point. I don't really know what the timeline is there, but if he can come back, then you feel a little better about Dwayne Brown and Max Mitchell, and then eventually Fant comes back and all that. But for the next couple of weeks, it's going to be rough.
Yeah. LaFleur said he wants to run the ball more. So that's one more reason to do it, right? Is to protect your quarterback. All right. You also mentioned Wilson running, obviously. So, but my question with that is, does the playbook on Sunday look the same as it has looked, except for the fact that you just happen to have a quarterback who's going to be able to escape the pocket when pressured instead of what you had in Joe Flacco? Or are the plays actually different because of what Zach Wilson can do with his legs?
That's a really good question. I'm curious. It's kind of wait and see for me. I think eventually, if not this week, I think they'd start doing a lot of design runs with him, just because you just can't do those with Joe Flacco and the RPOs, and gives you more optionality, especially with, I know, Elijah Moore hasn't necessarily produced that much. He's been open a lot and Flacco hasn't seen him. So you have all these weapons. You have these running backs that are legit threats. Breece Hall is a home run threat. It feels like he's pretty close to breaking one loose. So if you have that optionality with a quarterback that can move, then you can throw the defense off a little more. Whereas with Flacco, once everybody knew they weren't running the ball anymore, they could defend it as if they knew he was going to pass it against them no matter what. And, that's exactly what happened. I mean, the amount of Aaron Reese, who works for us, he's like really good with the NFL True Media stats. He sent me one about how Flacco has the most dropbacks through 3 games for any quarterback since at least 2000. Like, the 37-year-old Joe Flacco has the most dropbacks in a passing league in at least 22 years. So I don't think they want to do that with Zach. That's for sure. They really have to commit to the run, and it's easy to say, we fell behind and all that stuff, but they're like, we're giving up on the run in the third quarter. Like, they can't do that anymore. And you have 2 running backs that are pretty good. So you hope that it's at the very least a close game going in the second half, and you run the ball, make things easier for Zach, some play action, get him on the move. Maybe hope that he can escape pressure better than Joe Flacco did. So I think there's reason to believe the offense will be more dynamic with Zach, but like we've talked about, I mean, maybe it's been a while since we talked about it because he hasn't been around, but he wasn't very good last year, and so you need him to not make those bad decisions he did last year. Like, everybody's assuming and hoping that he's going to be better than he was last year. I saw a stat that he was. I was looking at True Media actually. He had the worst completion percentage against pressure out of every single quarterback in the NFL last year. So it's not as if like the fact that he is mobile has made him better than Flacco against pressure, but you hope that he's better in that regard, and his mobility, and just allows them to do more things.
Keep plays alive. And one more thing on Zach Wilson, then we'll move on a little bit. But last year, you're right, he wasn't good. But when he got injured and he came back, he was definitely better when he came back after watching Mike White have a great game in this offense. Actually watching every single quarterback that they put out there while he was gone, at least have some success, have more success than he had. So I wonder now, obviously he's had the whole off season to think back on last season, to go over extra film. He's had the summer to work out, all of that. But now he's also had 3 more games to watch Joe Flacco and to take like, all right, that was good, that was bad. So is there a world where we could look back on this injury and think, you know what, those extra 3 games of watching someone else in the long run helped Zach Wilson?
Yes and no, because I think there definitely is some merit to that. And, I think I've talked on here before about how maybe it's ideal that he's coming late because you're going to have like Garrett Wilson knows what he's doing in the offense. You're going to have an offensive line in theory that was going to be able to have like some experience together, but now that's kind of thrown out the window a little bit. But on the flip side, like he missed some really valuable reps. He's a young quarterback. He really needed those reps in camp and in joint practices in the preseason. And so I think that part is concerning to me because we don't really know how he can do without. Again, you did mention how he was out last year, and then he came back in week 12. And week 12 to 18, he was way better than he was at the beginning of the year. So hopefully it's the same thing. But the difference was he had a full training camp and he had a full piling of games from the first half of the year that he played in. So
right.
I honestly, like I said, it's all just a big unknown. We're all guessing. There's a lot of people who are not optimistic. There are some who are. He's flashed some talent, but until he shows it, like you kind of have to assume all we know is what we've seen, and what we've seen is not that impressive. So until he shows that he's better than that, like you have to kind of assume that's what it is.
Yeah, and the one point you had a tweet about it today, and Legend Killer actually put it in the chat here. Just take Zach with these weapons versus Zach, as he put it, with high school players at the end of last season, and it's a big difference. And that is true. I mean, these are some. This is a much better supporting cast for sure. Yeah. Maybe not the offensive line in its current state, but the weapons around him, the players that he's going to have to throw to. Last year, guys just weren't open. And this year, there will be players open. We'll see whether or not he can find those open players on Sunday. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the defense, which has been a bigger problem in a lot of ways than the offense. And Jeff Ulbrich at the podium today. We'll take a break now.
I'm really excited to talk to you about our sponsor, Liquid Death. You may start noticing there are some strange tall boys of beer in the bottled water section of your local stores. Well, guess what? It's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. Why is the water called Liquid Death? Well, because it will brutally murder your thirst, and their infinitely recyclable tall boy cans are helping to bring death to plastic bottles. They also donate 10% of profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. How great is that? I drink so much water a day, and I was so excited to try Liquid Death because a lot of times I drink out of plastic bottles. Not only is Liquid Death amazing water, but it's also so much better for the environment. My favorite is the sparkling in the afternoon, a nice cold sparkling water. So great in the workday. So if you want to try it, which I highly recommend, go get Liquid Death at your local Whole Foods Market, Target, and Stop and Shop stores. Or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/wait. That's liquiddeath.com/wait.
I was actually just looking at the can. We're way overdoing the sponsorship with Liquid Death at this point, but I did not even realize that it's actually Austrian. The water's from the Alps, but it's Austrian. Good marketing in Austria for the American audience to go with Liquid Death. I don't know, but interesting twist there.
Marissa start doing the ads in an Arnold Schwarzenegger accent then.
Oh, Jesus. I'm not good at accents, so that wouldn't go over well.
How about Jersey? Can you do Jersey Shore?
Well, I mean, my Jersey, like the way I say, I say water, like you should know water. That. Yeah, there's a D in it.
There's a D. That's Philly too. Philly does water.
I didn't know that until I was in like late high school that somebody told me like the way I said it was weird. So, just like normal stuff. Our listeners can understand. I'm sure they have similar accents.
Mandy's from Philadelphia or outside of Philly, but she went to school in Philadelphia. She says water. So
I'm used to it. My family does. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. Let's talk about this defense. I said it off the top, Zach, another banner day for the coaches at the podium. Jeff Ulbrich today said some things that angered the fan base. Let's get into those first. The first one that I think was the bigger kind of viral video on Twitter and around was when he was asked about the rotation and why they're rotating so much, because that's obviously become a huge thing when you look at the numbers of plays from these defensive linemen, a position that's supposed to be a strength on this team, and they're they're lower than the best defensive linemen for other teams. It's just a fact. And the Jets, I don't want to say he doubled down on it, but his quote was basically like, sometimes on a key play, I want to have Quinn and Williams out there and I look over and he's gasping for air, which was, the way I look at it, what he meant to say was one thing. The way it was taken, I think, was one of two things. One, you were saying it, Quinn's out of shape, which I don't think is necessarily true. And then the other one is, well, I haven't done this rotation in a good enough way that on the most important plays, I have my best players out there. I don't think he meant either of those things, but that's how it played.
Yeah, it wasn't I asked the question. I don't
it's
know.
Your fault.
It is. You can blame me, I guess. I wasn't trying to like set him up for failure or anything. I was genuinely wondering because he had just gotten done talking about how great Quinnen has been,
Right.
which I think has been lost in all of this because it sounds like he's criticizing him there. He was just raving about how dominant he's been. He called him a game wrecker, all that stuff. And I know how fans have been passionate about the D-line rotation. I think there's some merit to some of the concerns and all that, especially because they haven't been getting pressure consistently. And so I literally just was like, so, does the fact that Quinn's playing so well, does it, is there ever any party that's like, let's keep him out there, ride the hot hand kind of thing? And that's kind of where he went with his answer. The thing is, like, I get the idea of they're not going to go away from the rotation. I think that's pretty clear. I think that was the main takeaway from his answer is that they're not going. They've talked about that in the past, him and Saleh. There is some merit to doing it. I've seen like the Eagles have always done a rotation on the D line, and it works pretty well. But they also are deeper, and they're already good. Like the Jets aren't good enough to like take guys like Quinnen Williams. Like he's not going to play 100% of the snaps, but he should play 75%, 80%, something like that. And so I get. Specifically with him, like maybe the rest of the D line you could rotate out, or maybe Carl Lawson plays more than he has been, or whatever. But so I get the fans' frustration with that, especially when you see a guy like Jermaine Johnson who looked pretty good last week in limited snaps, and so you want to get him more snaps maybe when he's rushing the passer. But I don't know. They have a lot of the problems aren't really the D-line rotation. I would say they have bigger problems on the defense, but that certainly is not a positive thing.
All right, and then the other, call it what you will, a slip up, I guess we can call it, or that's how it played at least, is when he basically said like this defense is a work in progress. We're getting better was kind of his point, and we're going to continue to get better. But he referenced the Patriots and Bill Belichick's teams. That Bill Belichick saying sometimes he doesn't know what he has until week 8. And that, again, like wrong way to go with the answer. Even if the point that we're going to get better all season is maybe a good one.
What sorry, I got distracted by something. I pulled a Connor right there.
Wow.
I was just saying that. Thanks. No, I was just saying my
nephew was
the reference to the Patriots and getting better throughout the season, but like it's just not the team to compare to, and it's
sorry, but I saw my nephew kept calling me, so I thought it was like over and over again. So I'm like, what's going on here? Anyway,
blame it on the kid. Sure.
Oh, it's on my kid. The Patriots line. Look, it's another thing where like you were saying, like I get the point he was trying to make, that you're not going to be playing your best in week 4. You're going to be playing your best, you hope, by the end of the season. But this is not a team that can afford to wait to play well. So Connor, not to give Connor props or anything, but he had a good follow-up question to when Ulbrich was talking about the Patriots thing, where he's like, I get what you're saying pretty much. This isn't exactly what Connor asked, but he essentially was like, but they had like Tom Brady and they had the benefit of the doubt, and the Jets don't have that. They need, especially they're 32nd in DVOA right now defensively. Like that, they're literally the worst defense in the NFL by that metric. They need to get better. There's a lot of problems, the communication, all the stuff we've talked about, the tackling, the lack of pass rush, all that stuff. Like that, all the Patriots talk, all that stuff is irrelevant. They just need to do the right things. This defense has been making a lot of really bad mistakes, which doesn't reflect great on Ulbrich or Saleh. And it's going to start on, if they can't stop the Steelers offense with Mitchell Trubisky at quarterback, then they're not going to stop any offense. So
And they got to get off the field, right? I mean, the opponent's converting, I think it's 51.3% on third downs. It's 31st in the league. 7 of the 10 touchdowns have come on third down. They just, in these key spots, that seems like that's when the mistakes have come.
Exactly.
Now, the difference is some of these games, obviously, they didn't face a particularly great quarterback against the Browns, but Joe Burrow last week. But you mentioned Trubisky. So again, it shifts back to, I think, weeks 1 and 2 a little bit, where the focus is going to be maybe more on the defense and stopping Najee Harris, right? I mean, they have to, if you can put pressure on Trubisky, if you can make Trubisky beat you, he's not going to. I think that's a safe way of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, yes, that's accurate. They need to play them pretty much like they did the Browns. And that wasn't always effective. Nick Chubb ran for a lot of yards. I don't think Harris is as good as Chubb. They were trying to force Jacoby Brissett to beat them, and the Browns were able to do it very efficiently with screens and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say if they don't stop Najee Harris, it's going to be a long day. And if they don't press that, Trubisky, as everybody knows, is a guy that you can pressure into making mistakes, and they haven't really done that to these quarterbacks yet. And it's a shame because the Jets have these 2 corners that are just like legit studs, and they haven't really taken advantage of that yet. We're going to talk about that until they do. So if the pressure can get there up front, then I would guess Sauce Gardner or DJ Reed gets a pick this game. And if the pressure's not getting there, then they're going to be hitting those safeties all afternoon, and the safeties have been a really big weak spot for this defense so far.
Here's my bold prediction for Sunday. Jets get a pick 6.
Wow, not just
from Trubisky. Yeah, pick 6 from one of those corners.
Wow. If they do that, the Jets are going to win, I think. So.
Yeah, if they get a defensive touchdown, it feels like that's it. A little more on the Steelers as we just kind of shift into that. Obviously, we said it early on. No TJ Watt. They're actually 0-6 during his career without TJ in the lineup, so that bodes well for the Jets. Minka Fitzpatrick
and for McDermott, that bodes well.
Yeah, Fitzpatrick probably will play. I think he's still questionable with the concussion, but he practiced today, so he'll probably be back out there. But one thing that I feel like it's almost time to keep an eye on with Trubisky is he hasn't been good. 6.5 yards per attempt last week. He was 1 of 9 on third down, so something's got to give with this Jets defense. But I wonder if the first half goes real bad, is there any chance we see Kenny Pickett? Is this the week?
I was thinking about that. I mean, I was listening to a podcast. Actually, I think Athletic NFL show with Robert Mays. I was listening to that. They were talking about how Tomlin has just been like, he's been like so like definitive about how he wasn't going to bench Trubisky. After last game, after Trubisky was terrible, he was just like, and so who knows if it's coach speak or if Tomlin is like stubborn, but if Trubisky is terrible in that first half and the Jets like go into halftime with the lead, could you imagine that? You wonder if Pickett's the guy when they come out of the locker room, because he looked pretty good in the preseason too. So yeah, I wouldn't rule it out. I don't have a good read on Tomlin and how like if his coach speak is legit or not and all that stuff, but it wouldn't shock me if Pickett was out there. He a little different skill set. I don't think it would necessarily affect how maybe the Jets approach things defensively, especially because he's a rookie and you wonder if the lights are going to be too big for him in that moment. But I would say that's a possibility. And the Steelers do have, they have like Deontay Johnson, they have George Pickens, who's pretty talented, Chase Claypool. Like they have some weapons that can get open. They don't really have a tight end, and they have Najee, so they have some weapons for whoever's at quarterback. So if the Jets are making mistakes, like it's not like this is a team that's not going to capitalize on them. The Steelers will, even with Trubisky there.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess the one thing, Tomlin knows what he's doing when he says things, right? I mean, he's been doing this a long time. He is polished as far as saying only what he wants to say, kind of the opposite of what we've experienced a little bit here with the Jets. And the other thing is he's not a guy that's going to panic at all, right? Like nobody's got more job security in the NFL than that guy. So maybe halftime isn't the time he makes that change. Maybe it's, with a full week of practice for the young kid. But I believe the change will happen at home just because Pickett played his college football in that stadium. It feels like that's where, he'll get his first start just because of the comfort level. But yeah, we will certainly see. All right. Anything else before we get to picks? Zach, did I miss anything?
I mean, I would just say, they don't have TJ Watt, but they do like the whole thing that they've all been talking about this week is that the Steelers are still the Steelers. Like they still have like exotic ways of getting to the quarterback. Tomlin's as good as it comes in terms of like calling plays defensively. So they're going to try and find ways to make life difficult for Zach Wilson. And we'll see how he handles that is going to, dictate how this game goes.
Yeah, that is going to be really interesting to watch, is that factor, the blitzes and picking up and how the second-year quarterback does it. All right, time for the pick segment, which really isn't going well for anyone. Well, I shouldn't say that, Zach. You get back-to-back 2-1 weeks, I think, up to 5. And here is our guest. Welcome to the show, Paul. A lot of people that are watching probably familiar with you, obviously. Paul, and you have the name there, Boy Green Esden Jr. You have your own Jets podcast. You're obviously going to have better audio than Zach right now, I'm sure. How
the high quality
man?
Mic setup he's got going on there.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you got to go all out, baby. When you get an invite to the Can't Wait podcast, Marissa, Tim, Zach, we got the full crew here, minus of course Connor Hughes, rest in peace, in his new place, of course. But yeah, baby, we're here. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm giddy.
I love it.
Let's rock and roll, baby.
And for our audio listeners, I mean, I know he sounds great, but he's got an awesome backdrop. He's decked out in Jets gear.
Jets helmet,
This is great.
Yeah. I think you had popcorn for a bit there, right?
I did. I took it literally. That's right. Because Marissa, behind the scenes, we got like this, curtain for people who aren't StreamYard users. It's like, hey, Paul, hey, what's going on? Don't worry. We're going to get to you in a little bit. I'm like, I'll go grab some popcorn. She probably said, oh, like figuratively speaking. I'm like, oh, no, literally. I got some popcorn here. I'll enjoy the show. Kick back. I'm a big Can't Wait podcast fan. So, yeah, man, this is awesome. This is really cool.
So before we get to the picks, obviously you're a huge Jets fan. You get the podcast, you do radio too. Where did it all begin for you with the green?
How much time do we have? I mean, for Pete's sake, but
a minute or two.
There we go. Yeah. It's long story short, I don't have that normal story, right? My dad was a Jets fan, so I'm a Jets fan. Like it was just some weird convoluted thing. Everyone else is fans of different teams. My grandpa gave me the nickname the Jet because I was always buzzing around all over the place. I went, Jet, who the hell are the Jets? And then I went, and then long story short, watch a game. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll attach my life to this team and enjoy the roller coaster until I'm dead. So I'm like, for better or for worse, here we go. And it's been mostly negative, but you know what? You always have to. Here's the thing, okay, that you don't control the cards you're dealt in life. But what you can control is your attitude towards it. So I know there's a lot of negative Jet fans. So I try to be the self-proclaimed most optimistic Jets fan on the planet, man. Got to bring some juice. Got to bring some energy, some chutzpah.
Positive energy on the podcast. We love it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So I have one follow-up just from that answer you gave, which is you had Jets buzzing around, whatever, it was a nickname. You said you watched one game and you were hooked. Yeah. What game was it?
The last time that the Jets won the AFC East back in that 2002, for those counting at home, 20 years ago now is the last time. So it was in the middle of that season that no one saw coming. So I watched a game and apparently, there's the real bandwagon hopping. Apparently, I bandwagoned at the wrong time.
We stuck with it when they were terrible. So
that's right. That's a sign of true commitment. So shout out to my fiance. Yeah.
I love it.
All right, Paul, you're going to go last because I think that's the way we've been doing this. So we'll all go through our picks and then we'll get to you. And I mean, going by your optimism, I hope that you pick the Jets, but not to win, but like that you're picking that game. Because if you're listening to the first time, we all pick three games. We can pick any 3 games against the spread. The competition goes on. So here's the standings going into the week. Zach leading the way, 5-4. I'm 4-5. The listeners compilation is 3-6, 3-3 without Connor Hughes.
I was just about to say, thanks, Connor Hughes.
Yeah. And Marissa is 2-7, but
not going great.
Come on,
Marissa, the defending champion.
Yeah, I left it all out on the field last.
She's a late bloomer. That's all.
Yeah,
that's all.
Yeah, plenty of time to go.
Jets defense. Yeah.
She'll be there by week 8.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yep.
All right, my picks, and I'll zip through these. Rams plus 2.5 at the Niners. Feel like the Rams haven't really been their full selves yet. So being an underdog, go with that. The Cowboys surprised me. I've been going against them because without Dak, whatever, but the Commanders are the Commanders. So I'll take Dallas -3.5. And then they were good to me 2 weeks ago. So I'm sticking with them. Or not 2 weeks ago. That was the Jets game last week. The Browns, sticking with them, Marissa, -2.5 at Atlanta. Atlanta's not good. I feel like
it's
Atlanta's
actually
played
even
better than
closer
they
now.
actually
I think
are.
it's -1 now.
Yeah, it's minus
Oh,
one.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll take -1. Yeah, I don't think I went to, you know what is the problem is I didn't go to BetMGM. This, by the way, this segment presented by BetMGM. So glad I got that in there. So -1 for Browns. All right, Zach, you're up.
You want to launch the world's largest streaming channel in over 40 countries, all in one
What is
year.
that?
Zach, what are you doing?
Sorry.
God?
I thought that was like a planned bit.
Yeah, I know. I thought there was a bit. I'm like, wow,
The
phenomenal
timing was
content.
perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm a mess today. So I actually had the Browns -1 as well. I don't think the Falcons are very good. I'm gonna go Jaguars +6.5 against the Eagles. I think Eagles are obviously better. Jaguars are really good. I think that game will be closer.
You think Dougie P's gonna coach up some
Revenge game.
Yeah.
But the amazing thing is what you just said, though. The Jags are really good.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Their defense, yeah. And
Really, all they were
Lawrence.
missing was a coach. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'll go Broncos +2.5 against the Raiders, who I don't think are particularly good. So
Going to be the 0-4 Raiders.
yeah. So that's where I'm going.
All right, Marissa.
All right. So I wanted to pick the Eagles just because that the past 2 weeks have done well for me, but I think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be closer than that. So I'm not going to pick them. I'm going to go, first of all, again, I don't know why I'm betting against the Panthers again, because they proved me wrong last week, but Cardinals +2 versus the Panthers, like something seemed a little off with that. I mean, I don't know. I was wrong last week about them, so maybe I am this week, not doing too well, but I'm going to go Cardinals +2, Vikings -2.5 at the Saints, and then the poor Chargers, man, they're beaten down. So I think they are going to beat the Texans, but I'm going to get the Texans to cover. So Texans +5 versus the Chargers.
Wow, beautiful. All right.
All right, Paul.
All right, Paul, the floor is yours.
Well, first off, I mean, I got to carry the torch from Marissa there. I know she's been in a slump, but you know what? I'm going to jump on the bandwagon too. That means it's going in the right direction.
All right.
So let's do that. The Panthers aren't good enough to be giving anybody points. I mean, what the hell? I mean, Baker Mayfield stinks. Christian McCaffrey might not play, so give me Arizona, baby. Toot, toot. Marissa, we're hopping on that train, baby. So, yes, I love that. So, I love the Cardinals. I got Vegas Insider here, but we could go with whatever line. MGM, of course, sponsors. Love you guys. Thank you for the support on this show. So yeah, give me Arizona. I got +1.5 here, but I'll take it with whatever everyone else has here. So that's beautiful.
Get the 2. We'll give you the 2.
Okay. Oh, 2. Beautiful. And I got to go against Zach here, going on the Russell Wilson Denver Broncos. Initiate the gag reflex, man. I don't know how you have any confidence in those boys whatsoever. I mean, so I got to go Raiders, man. There's no way this team's dropping a 0-4. They got Devontae Adams and Derek Carr and everybody. So, man, the Broncos is the wrong train to be hopping on, old Zach. I don't know about that. But and then the final one. How could we not? A little Jets Pittsburgh action, baby. New York heading in to the Steel City to Czechs Notes Acrisure Stadium. I got to get used to that one, but come on. What am I getting? Jets 3.5 all day, every day. Pound the table. Zach Wilson's back, and they got Mitch Trubisky. I've been describing this on the podcast recently. Okay, the Steelers' offense is this sexy Ferrari. You're like, ooh, George Pickens, tasty. Chase Claypool, oh, that's nice. And all these weapons, Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, and then you say, oh wow, this car looks great. Let's take a peek under the hood. There's nothing in there, man. There's no engine. Mitchell Trubisky stinks. He sucks. So, I mean, you can have all the beautiful weapons that you want, but if you can't get them the gosh darn football, not going to mean jack diddly. So I'm taking the Jets, baby. Give me that 3.5. I like it.
Beautiful.
Paul, this has been excellent. Just excellent.
Paul,
great.
I just want to know, because you self-proclaim most positive Jets fan.
Yeah.
1 and 2 through 3 weeks. How does this team finish the season? What's the record?
Oh, yeah. because I remember as obviously a dedicated and loyal listener to the Can't Wait podcast, I heard you guys dabbling in this before the season as you kind of go through week by week and trying to, make your selections and things. I think if you would have asked Jet fans if they would have had a realistic shot at 500, 2-2 through this AFC North, which is the first time in history that they've ever opened up the straight four, I think a lot of people would have taken that and then roll into that Miami home game, see what happens. Now, I think Miami is better than a lot of people would have thought. 3-0 just beating the Bills, and we'll see what happens tonight, obviously, on Thursday Night Football. But, man, you're asking me, I'm going to stick by my guns, okay? I'm going to stick by exactly what I said in May because, you know what? Mama didn't raise a sucker. So I'm going with exactly what I selected. That's 9-8. I can see it, man. I can see it. Look at that back half of the schedule. You got all these, and I know Jacksonville showing a little something. Geno Smith, Justin Fields, with all these limited attack. Like, look at that second half of the schedule. The Jets can make a little mojo happen. All you got to do is survive this first half of the schedule before the bye. Give me a little 4-5, maybe 5-4 if we're getting froggy. Like, you give me a little bit of that, go to the second half. Let's roll out the ball and see what happens. So 9-8, baby. First winning season, only the second winning season in the last 11 gosh darn years. How about a little positivity? How about a little bit of that action? That's what I like. Yes.
I tell you what, Paul, if they go 9-8, you're coming back on the podcast.
100%.
We'll have you.
Make it happen. Yes. All right. So when should we book me? Let's just get that in right now then, I suppose. Yes.
Well, to preview the wild card game, right?
Oh, geez.
Hey, Tim's got, I like the vibes in here. Very nice, Tim. Very nice.
All right. Great stuff, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully you keep the listeners, the numbers growing here. 3-6 right now, but on your way back, I think. So good stuff.
Again, the bar is, I don't have to be great. I just got to be better than Connor. And he set the bar pretty low. So I think we're all in great shape.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, man.
All right. Thanks, Paul. All right. That is going to do it for this edition of the Can't Wait podcast. It should be fun Sunday. I really feel good about watching this game. The Steelers team is very beatable. Zach Wilson's back. There's a lot to look forward to. Hopefully we can come to you early next week with the same kind of feel-good show that we had after the Browns game, but with a better win, right? That not a game in which the Jets lead for 22 seconds, but a game in which the Jets lead from the beginning to the end and actually show that they're the better team throughout. That's what we're looking for. If you want to join The Athletic, you can do that for $1 a month for 6 months. Go to theathletic.com/can't-wait. Anything else, Marissa, Zach, or is that it?
I would say I didn't give a prediction, so just for the sake of me putting it out there,
we also didn't mention one other thing that we have to.
Strabler.
Oh yeah, Mr.
Done.
Strabler, Mr. Chris. I'm going to say 20-17. I don't know if I actually believe it, but I'm trying to will it into existence because if the Jets lose this game, it's going to start getting ugly. So I'm going to say Jets win 20-17.
All right, let's make it happen. All right, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you again next week.